Hello and welcome back to the Life Fit podcast. I'm your host, Jack O'Halloran, and today I chat with the director, author, and producer of the Heal documentary and now book, Kelly Noonan Gores. In this beautiful conversation, we chat all about Kelly's journey through health and break down for you a variety of topics such as meditation, the importance of mental hygiene, connecting to self, the health industry, and much, much more. And as always, we also share many tips, tricks, and hacks that you can implement today in your journey through health. If you'd like to find out more about Kelly and her work, head over to thehealdocumentary.com, or you can also watch it on Netflix. Head to Instagram at Kelly Gores or at the Heal Documentary. And be sure to check it out because it's such a fantastic book and film with so many amazing contributors such as Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, and many, many more. Kelly has kindly donated to us a signed copy of the book adaptation of the film. All you have to do to be in with a chance to win is either like this post, tag a friend in the comments below, share it to your story, or hit us up with a DM and we will enter you into the draw for it. If you'd like to support us, remember we are on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn at LifeFit Studios. You can find my personal page at jackohalloran_IE. And we are also on Patreon, where every donation you make can go an awful long way to helping us continue to contribute and be of service to you with this wonderful show. So, it's without further ado, I welcome you now to sit back, relax, open up that heart of yours, and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the show. Kelly Noonan Gores, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my absolute privilege and honor. As I said, I first came across your work, which is the Heal documentary and now book. Came across it a few years ago, about 3 years ago first, and big into documentaries, big into a lot of the guests you have on, like Michael Beckwith, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, and the likes, and somehow. And you kind of became my hero for this. You managed to get them all under one roof and got them all under one narrative to spread what is just such a beautiful message, and a message layered in emotion, layered in anecdotes, and layered in real stories about real people. I think that's a real gift. I think the world is definitely better off from your contribution and bringing that forward. In a sense, that's how I relate to you. That's what I'm trying to do here with the show, by bringing people like yourself. I had many other wonderful guests on. Some are published and some aren't published just yet, but somebody's got to do it. So from me, thank you for doing it. And if I can do half the great work you've done, I'll be a proud man. So more about Heal, but before that, could you maybe tell the audience, what's your story? Who are you? Where do you come from? What inspired you to, whether it's you saw a big problem out there and you wanted to fix it, or were you inspired through solutions, or however your journey started? Where did it all begin and where did you come to know?
How much time do you guys have? No.
I have about 4 hours.
It's a long story. I'll try to give you the short version. I grew up in Southern California, so I grew up in South Los Angeles. I across the street from the beach. I love the ocean. I'm such a beach girl. I started acting. My mom got me into modeling and acting when I was like 5 years old, and I took to it. I liked it. My brother was way cuter than I was, and he just didn't like doing it. So my mom didn't force him, but I liked doing it. So I kept, excuse me, at it. And I started doing commercials and television and stuff at around 7 years old. And I was always like, I loved acting but I also didn't want to be too special. I didn't want to stand out too much. So like, it was this, I wanted to be a normal kid, but I also loved this kind of side life that I had going on. And, it'd be fun to see myself on television, et cetera, et cetera. But about, I think this applies, because I was, I'm Irish. Both my grandparents are devout Catholics, both sides. So raised Irish Catholic. My brother was an altar boy, and came the time to be confirmed. And I asked my mom. I said, I love the stories of Jesus and the history part of it, but something is not fully resonating. Like, why are there all these other religions in the world? Why does everybody think that they're the one God and they're the one truth? I kind of feel like before I confirm my life to Christ, I feel like I should study everything and make sure that I'm making the right decision,
Yeah.
And so she said, yeah, I guess, you don't have to be confirmed. So we still went to church on holidays and stuff, but we weren't, super religious. Anyways, so that through my high school period, I basically questioned if God existed. I was very like cause and effect, logic, science minded. I went off to college and I went to Berkeley, which is in Northern California. So the weather's a bit different. Lots of sunshine in Southern California. Northern California is a bit gloomier. And I felt sort of a depression for the first time in my life. And I didn't know that that's what it was at the time. I just wasn't feeling good in my body. I was kind of like getting very frustrated and just wasn't as happy as I was as a kid. And I thought it was maybe because I was drinking lots of beer and eating pizza at 2 a.m. and there was no sun shining for 9 months of the year. And so I chalked it all up to that. And I missed home. So I transferred to UCLA. And in the midst of transferring, I traveled to Australia with my brother for his senior university project. He was able to go anywhere in the world that he wanted to do a photo project because he was a really good photographer. And so I said, I have some time off between transferring schools. Can I go with you? I traveled to Australia. It was amazing. And on the way to the airport, this person that I met over there gave me a book called Return to Love by Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, beautiful poem too.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Her saying that is often attributed to Nelson Mandela, which I think is hers, is amazing, very powerful. So that book kind of woke me up in a sense. Like, it talked about God in, fear and love are the two choices that we have in every moment. And if we come from fear, that's hell on earth. And if we come from love, that's heaven on earth. And it was just spirituality and faith in a way that really resonated with me. And it also still fits into Christianity, by the way. Everything that Jesus was teaching is along those lines as well. And so I think, in hindsight, I realized that the depression, of course, it also had to do with poor diet and partying and lack of sunshine. But I think it mostly had to do, I just didn't have that spiritual understanding. I didn't have a rudder, it was just kind of a sailboat floating on the rough, stormy seas and didn't have any sort of anchor or rudder to steer me. And so that was kind of the first book that woke me up to kind of a spiritual seeking path. And then at that same time, I had stopped acting in high school because I wanted to be a normal kid, like I was saying. And after I transferred back to UCLA, I started acting again. And, I wasn't getting the career that I thought I deserved, or, I worked really hard. I did it, for much of my life. I consider myself pretty intelligent. I'm like, how come I can't crack this code? I should be farther along in my career than I am. And so I started kind of seeking out what was blocking me psychologically, emotionally. Where are these fears coming from? Why am I self-conscious? Why can't I open my heart and be vulnerable and be an amazing actor? So I started kind of seeing healers and energy healers and intuitives and exploring that world to remove blocks that were getting in the way of my dreams. So, I'll fast forward through my 20s and I decided I was having some stomach problems, which most women throughout their lives have a lot of emotional issues in their gut. And so I went to see a gastroenterologist and internist, like lots of different specialists, and I was having acid reflux as well. So all sorts of just digestive issues from top to bottom. And so long story longer, the guy handed me some samples of Prilosec, which is in America, it's this, anti-acid drug. But I was like, I had enough sense to go, I'm a healthy 28-year-old woman, I run marathons, for God's sake. I don't need to be on a pill for the rest of my life because I have this acid problem. There's got to be some cause to it. So I took this course. It's the Institute of Integrative Nutrition out of New York. And they basically study every diet, from ancient diets to modern diets to fad diets, and just teach us how, the food that we ingest really affects our psychology, our physiology, our biology, and that there's not one size fits all way of eating. It's bio individual. So based on our culture, where we were raised, where we live, based on seasons, et cetera, there's different ways of eating that are going to be better for you or me, et cetera. So it opened my eyes, and I put, I considered myself an intelligent person, but I wasn't connecting the fact that I was, eating frozen yogurt for lunch, drinking cheap red wine at night, and, making boxed pasta or eating cereal for dinner. I wasn't equating that to me having an acid problem. So once I had that awareness, I made choices and didn't need that Prilosec, which I never took anyway. But so it just kind of woke me up like, wow, people don't realize that their choices we're just kind of hypnotized to be irresponsible about our health, just out of lack of awareness, not out of ignorance, And so I just started learning. I read the book, Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. At the same time, I learned how to meditate because my yoga teacher at this, popular gym, this gym chain called Equinox, I was taking yoga classes, and this, teacher happened to be a good looking teacher. And he's like, I teach meditation. I was like, okay, great. I'm going to learn how to meditate. Meditation, you know what I mean? Like whatever the entry is, you got to do it. So, but the way he taught meditation was like legit, and it woke me up. Like I started meditating, and my life just really got better. I just had so much more space and grounding and clarity and peace in my life. I wasn't as, subjected to the roller coaster of circumstances around me. And so I started going to Agape, which is where Michael Beckwith is the founder and teacher there. So it's just kind of all at the same time, reading Biology of Belief, like I mentioned, by Bruce Lipton, and realized we're not victims of our genes. I was really into Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction, and, really understanding how our thoughts are energy, and it affects the frequency of our bodies, that everything is energy, and we're sending out a signal, and attracting, kind of where our thought process is. So all of that kind of at the same time made me just realize how powerful we are. We're co-creators with life. We're not victims of life. We're not victims of our genes. That's what Bruce Lipton taught me in Biology of Belief with epigenetics, the science of epigenetics. And so I started people would come up to me and ask me, why are you so happy? Why, how are you manifesting all these great things? What's your secret? What do you eat? What do you do? And so I just really started having compassion for all these people that were taking the pill that their doctors were prescribing them, because they just didn't know better. They didn't know that their lifestyle choices were really affecting their energy and their mental health and their physical health. And so ultimately, I just decided to put all the people that changed my life, which are all the teachers in the film, Marianne Williamson, Bruce Lipton, Michael Beckwith, Joe Dispenza, the list goes on, and Deepak Chopra. And I just had this vision. I'm like, I have to put all these teachers in a film to show people how powerful we are, and how intelligent the human body is, and how just remarkable our human potential is. So that's what I did.
Beautiful story. Long story. Yeah, but it's good. And it's what it reminds me of is a story from the film, that story of the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. And it's about the caterpillars in his cocoon or crystal or whatever they call it, and he's struggling to get out, and a man comes along and cuts it open with the scissors, and this butterfly falls out and dies. And it's that we need to go through our own journey to be able to find our own resonance with things for them to really sink in. Yes. there's often this idea, and the way I think about it, maybe it's a harsh way of looking, but quite often, it kind of takes the heart attack to get the fatty off the couch. It quite often takes the global crash to make a person change their way. Now, kind of I don't know, maybe as some bit of a healer myself and a medical professional, if I can see a way to speed that up, whether it's creating content to make people realize that so that they can transcend through those moments quicker, then all the better. And I bring back to heal, because heal is this concentration of so many different pieces of wisdom all around us, brought in under one beautiful, what is it, like an hour and 12 minutes or thereabouts, just into such a beautiful story. And it really it goes back again to the idea, and you touched on this idea of victimhood. And so many people, myself included, and I still have subconscious programs running in me today. Like, I can see them, but I'm still practicing unwiring them, if that makes sense, to where, we externalize. We think that thing over there that I'm reacting to is the problem, not actually the fact that I'm reacting to it. And the likes of Joe Dispenza, the likes of Bruce Lipton, and all of these, and epigenetics in particular, and epigenetics is such a fascinating field, because it shows how our emotions and the way we experience, which is, as you said earlier on, it's that choice of love or hate, it's that choice of love or fear. When we can begin to see things through the lens of love and gratitude and all of that, we begin to change our resonance. We begin to really change that chemistry that's happening in our blood, which is our environment in our petri dish. And kind of what's sad is so many people don't know this. And I know you're in America, which, look, is definitely is the most expensive country in the world for healthcare. There's the most money invested, which you would think, based on their model, if their paradigm works, then surely they'd be the healthiest country in the world. But that's just not the case. So something is amiss, and it doesn't take a genius to know that. I mean, even your gut would tell you that if you spend loads of money on a problem, surely the solution should be right if the paradigm is right. But it's not right. And I see this happening in Ireland now, where we're going closer and closer to that model, getting really, really uncomfortably close to it. We are already there with it. And it's trying to shift that paradigm back to that internalized view of health. And, we had on Heal, we had Eva and Elizabeth, and following their story, and how, Eva was maybe less comfortable with going down the holistic path, had less faith in it, which, as also in the show, shows that the level of faith and belief in anything is so important, because it likes a placebo effect and all of that. But to see their transcendence through that journey too, and how, Elizabeth's story at the end was just so beautiful. It really, really was. It was a stage 4 she had, and battling through that. And, it just goes to show that. And I remember I came up with my own little quote when I was about 4 years of age, that it's not what happens to you, it's how you get over it. No, I don't think I probably made that up. I probably saw it in a cartoon and just thought it was, I made it up. But, it is bringing back that idea of responsibility, bringing that idea of we are in control. And it's not about control from a domineering point of view, but control from, at least a non-victimhood point of view. And yeah, I don't know. Would you have thoughts on just how crippling the victimhood culture is, and how in some senses, via other content creators, whether it's mainstream media or whatever, how they're continually propagating that paradigm and that mindset. And, I would hope that I'm somewhere on the same path as you, because you definitely are on the path of propagating the mindset of inside out. What is within is without. And as you said, I'm not much of a devout religious person or whatever, but even Jesus taught that, what is within is without. And it's common to all the religions, no matter what faith you are. I think they'll all say that it's what's within. It's tapping into that source. And speaking of that source, I guess, and you mentioned meditation. I think a lot of people have a stigma around meditation. They think you have to be under some tree, with your legs folded and your finger or your index finger and your thumb touching, and you need to have sage burning and all of this. But exactly, I mean, I think it's a lot simpler than that. And I don't know, could you maybe elaborate on how meditation, maybe if you had to have a transcendence period with it yourself, and if you did struggle with it initially, how did you begin to journey through that? And then maybe what does your meditation and your own way of connecting your mind-body connection, how does that look like today, in 2020 after your journey?
Totally. So I first took that course with that hot yoga teacher in 2007. But he taught it in such a way. It was, I think it's really important to, look, any way you start is great. There's so many meditation apps out there. Technology is making it possible to, just pop some headphones in and they guide you into calm in about 5-10 minutes. But I learned, in a much more traditional transcendental meditation way. So it's TM and they give you a mantra and it's 4 days in a row. And we were in groups at the time, small groups. It was like 4 other people learning with me. And he taught us, the history of meditation, why it works, what it does mentally, what it does physiologically, chemically, spiritually. So he gave us the framework to understand why it's beneficial on so many levels. So there was a lot of meaning behind it. So, and then the experience of doing it 4 days in a row with a group, because I find that when you're meditating in groups, it's actually much more profound. Like I can drop deeper in groups because the whole field in the room changes because everybody's getting into a coherent state and it's much more magnified. So that experience was profound. And then he added the meaning and the education on it. And when you assign meaning to something, and then Joe Dispenza talks about this in the film, that's why the placebo works, because you believe and understand why it should work. And so you assign meaning to it, and then you're more likely to keep up with the habit. So I think my foundation was very strong with meditation, going through that course. And then of course, I was going to Agape and taking classes with Michael Beckwith, and meditation is at his absolute foundation of spirituality as well. And so it just ingrained it in me, and it is a practice. And I've, in that, 2007 to now, it's 13 years. There's been some periods of time where I've gone away from meditation. But for me, and Marianne Williamson talks about it in the film in the best way. She says, look, we shower every day. We physically go into the water and shower, or at least I hope you do, like, at least every other day, maybe.
I'm due my monthly shower next week.
Yeah. But we shower the gunk, the pollution in the air, the sweat, the stress. We shower that off of our physical bodies every day. Yet we don't realize that we need mental hygiene too. We need a mental shower, and that's what meditation is. So if you think about all the time on your smartphone or in front of your computer or watching the news, which people have been binging on with this election, we are bombarded with negative information or marketing and advertising that tells you you're not good enough subliminally. And we're taking all that on in our brains and our heads and our minds. And so really mental hygiene is meditation, where you can just cut off the stimulation from the outside world, reconnect to your breath, which is life, and turn within. And the more you practice that, it's practical at its very basic level. It's practical as mental hygiene, where you just release the stress, you calm your nervous system, you get your brain and your heart into coherent state, and you literally shift the frequency and the energy of your body. And then as you practice that more and more, then you start to really tap into your intuition. You hear that higher self, that inner guidance, that true self. You connect to your divinity. I mean, you could just dip into that, like where you become less of a embodied human and more of a soul, and the more you do that, then the more you're connecting back to your true self and your source, your divinity. So, there's a whole range from practical to spiritual, but it's a practice, and it's something you need to do every day, because every day life throws shit at us. And this is a way to come back to center. And the last thing I'll say about it is, we studied Ayurveda medicine, which is ancient medicine that has proven time and time again to be, so healing and just so intelligent. This wisdom of Ayurveda is really a high truth. And one of the experts in the film is Peter Crone, and he's an Ayurvedic, he's trained in Ayurvedic medicine. And he says the first stage of disease is accumulation. And so meditation, we accumulate so much stress in our mind, which then translates to our thoughts and then translates to chemistry in our body and affects our hormones, and is the first real stage of degeneration and disease, because we're in constant stress. So if we want to avoid disease, he says in the film, we need to avoid accumulation. So that's accumulation of physical toxins in our body, which we all know about from our products and our food and our environment. And it's avoiding the accumulation of mental stress. And the best way I know how to do that is to every day do your mental hygiene, meditate, and just you release all that stress from the day before. You set the tone for the day ahead of you. So that's my general philosophy is that it's necessary mental hygiene.
And it's so true, because we get up in the morning. I mean, brushing our teeth is something that everyone knows that you're an idiot if you don't do. Correct. Eating food, everyone knows you're an idiot if you don't do. Drinking water, everyone knows you're an idiot if you don't do. But maybe because of how we've been educated and because of our societies and because of our supposed leaders, leaders or masters, whatever we want to call them, they haven't made meditation that valuable to us. They haven't, given us that level of importance on it. And it's a sin. It really is, because it, as you said, it's so important. Every day it should be just important as eating. And it's like, would you go a day, what some people do with intermittent fasting and the likes, but generally speaking, we wouldn't go a day without eating, brushing our teeth, sleeping, so on. Why is it any different with meditation? And and that's where, again, I must offer my gratitude to you and your workers, because you're changing that message. You're out there, and in a sense, it's like you shouldn't have to, because it's such an obvious message. It's kind of like nowadays we laugh at how common smoking was in the 50s. We look back and it's like, what a bunch of idiots we were. But I think, and I hope, in 50 years' time, we look back at the year 2020 and say, what a bunch of idiots when they didn't meditate every day. So I really hope it's going that way. And that's where, again, as educators, and there'll be a lot of therapists listening to this, all different types, yoga therapists, and so on, chiropractors, the likes, is that, is really look into the importance of cleansing the mind. I had a conversation the other day with a non-podcast conversation, but just with a personal trainer and a friend of mine. And they were saying, and they were so right, whether you're benching or squatting or trying to get a person to lose weight or gain a couple of inches on their bicep or whatever, is that's all well and good, but unless you change the person, change what's within, you will never change what's without, and it goes back to that. And that's where the meditation is so important. Now, bringing it back further to what you were saying earlier, the meaning, and not everyone, it's this saying is you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. You have to be able to go through your own journey to find your own meaning. Mm-hmm. But I guess, again, that's where educators and podcasters and teachers and so on, we can make that journey simpler. So it does, instead of taking 10 miles in 10 hours, it could take maybe 5 miles in 5 hours. And if that can be my contribution, then I've done my job. If I can just speed it up any bit, I don't care by how much, doesn't matter. I'm not destination obsessed, but if I can just make a little dent in that, mm-hmm. then that's that's something, and that's why I bring back to the documentary. It's one of the best examples of that. And there's I have, again, the DVD. How old am I? It's when
that's like an OG DVD. That's like an old
I know.
Poster.
No, I'm not gonna lie. My mother, God love her, she actually got this because she is a lot older than me. But I was clever enough to go onto Netflix, where it's also available to everybody. But you have it here. You have winner of Maui Film Festival. There's 4 different ones here. Official selection, Boston Film Festival, and all of that. And I'm sure when you got those notifications and those emails, it felt wonderful and it was great. but I know in my heart and soul that's not why you done it. And you know, it's things like this, and those rewards, they're nice, but the meaning underneath it all is so much more important than that, the journey of it. And again, I encourage people, tap into it, tune into that, to the documentary and to the book, and hear the stories of like Eva's story, you know, and Elizabeth's story. And that is so incredibly touching, and it's so incredibly powerful. So again, and I can't really thank you enough for all of this. I you're my hero. So I don't know, I mean, there's so many different types of practitioners in it. You talk to psychic mediums, sound engineers, you talk to divine healers, you talk to nutritionists, you talk to so many different types. And you know, again, another thing that kind of tells me is that however manifest you might become as a healer, the source is the same. Yet how is it that in healing industry, chiropractors are fighting physical therapists, and you know, chiropodists are fighting podiatrists, and it's like we're all trying to heal. That's it. That's our common denominator. And the industry, particularly in the westernized sense of it, the conventional sense of it, has its head up its ass, you know, and it's missing what the purpose is. It's stuck on the destination. And it's like, tap into what is real and authentic, and that is the rain, the sunshine, you know, somebody touching in the shoulder and giving you that rush of oxytocin and serotonin. And again, your documentary is such a reminder of that, because whether it's a psychic medium or whether it's a, you know, epigeneticist, you can tell what's underneath is the same thing from that number one source. Some people call it God, some people call it Yahweh, some people call it the Tao. Whatever you call it is your own business. I don't care. But again, it's such a beautiful representation of that. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, and that came out 2017. The one question I had in my mind earlier on, because as a content creator, you can often get a bit of stick. And I know you asked your medium in the shows, like, do you get much criticism or much, you know, much backlash from the opposition, say, or from the conventional side? Have you had much of that since releasing the documentary? Have you, you know, any crazy stories, lawsuits, or CIA agents following you down the road or anything like that?
You know, I thought I was conscious going into it, knowing that we were going to trigger some people in the industry. So I was very careful not to be, well, my intention was to not be preachy and say, this is the only way. I always visualized it as like turning a light on for people that just weren't aware. Like I wasn't aware when I went to the gastroenterologist and he gave me Prilosec. I just wanted to turn the light on and offer up these ideas to people and different modalities out there that are working, to see what resonates. Because ultimately what I want to teach people is, you know, your intuition is your strongest guide. And often we ignore our intuition and give away our power to a person in a white coat because we've been conditioned to believe that they know everything because of their extensive medical training. And that they know much more than we do. So we should trust our body and our health with whatever they say. And what we're finding is that, you know, especially like you mentioned it before, but our system is set up so we're teaching doctors in a specialized manner. So they have to pick a specialization and then they're only taught in that. And we need to kind of, the system needs to change at, I think, the education level, how we're educating our doctors. And start with a holistic foundation there, and you know, ingrain in them that everything is connected. And to, you know, doctors are super intelligent people. So anyone that's listening, I'm not knocking any doctor, because they all get into the field to help people and save lives, and they're all highly, highly intelligent. But the system, you know, breaks them down eventually, and they, you know, doctors used to make a lot more money in America. And so that was appealing too for some people to get into that field. But now the system just cripples them. There's so much paperwork because of these insurance companies. There's so much, the only incentives they're getting are from drug companies. A lot of the drug companies are now funding education. So it's pretty insipid, but all of that to say, I was really trying not to poke the bear and not to say, to really say, and this is what I truly believe, drugs are amazing in acute situations. I mean, if you get into a car accident and have a 12-inch gash on your abdomen, like, you want pain pills, or you break your femur or something, you want pain pills. And that's, pain medication, you want a doctor to set the bone, and a surgeon to stitch you up. So all of Western conventional medicine has its place, and we're amazing technology that is saving lives, so I'm not discounting that. But the problem that we have in America is chronic, and the rest of the world is catching up, is chronic illness. And that's where medication begets more medication. That's not the path to health. You got to get to the root cause. You can't just silence the symptom with steroids or pain medication. That's a temporary bridge so that you can get through the fire and then go, okay, what do I need to change at the root that is causing this imbalance in my body? And so that's it. I just wanted to turn the light on. Our bodies are so only 2 to 5%, and a lot of the experts believe even more. I mean, even less. So, like, let's say 0 to 2% of people have serious genetic conditions that this doesn't apply to. But for 98% of the population, chronic illnesses are lifestyle, emotion, unhealed trauma, stress, environment, toxicity, all of these things that we do have power of changing. And we can't band-aid it with a pill. We've got Kelly Brogan talks about this famous metaphor. Western medicine is like, you have a piece of glass in your foot. Oftentimes they just want to put a Band-Aid over it and like a little padding in your shoe so it hurts less. Well, holistic medicine, we want to take that piece of glass out. We want to find that piece of glass and take it out, not just put padding around it so it hurts less. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which is not as poetic when I sell that metaphor, but you know what I'm saying. So
I'll use it and butcher it the next time.
Yeah. All of that to say, Western medicine, drugs, surgery, technology, all have its absolutely important place, but it's best served for acute medicine, acute health issues, and chronic issues. We need to get deeper, and we need to treat it from a holistic perspective.
And the documentary does such a brilliant job of explaining that too, and kind of, even I can remember the part of the documentary when it's doing that, and even slightly before it, it's showing how, again, I speak of the paradigm, the source of where a lot of our practitioners are coming from. They're still based off, Cartesian philosophy or Newtonian physics and the likes. And, and Bruce Lipton will talk about how in 1925, when quantum physics came in and it changed their understanding. But yet today, because that's where the money is, and, these pharma companies and so on they're there to make a profit. They're not really there to heal people at the end of the day. But they're still based on these Cartesian philosophies. They're still based on these Newtonian physics, which, as the documentary beautifully puts, it's very much right, this is a machine and one of the parts of the machine is broken and you must go in and fix that. But, there's a story from the documentary where if you close your eyes, this visualization story, you close your eyes, you walk into your kitchen in your mind, and you open the fridge and there's a lemon, and you take the lemon out of the fridge, you cut it in half, and you watch the juices, rise. And even as I'm doing this right now, my mouth is salivating, and I'm sure the listeners it's happening too. And it's like, that was my mind made my own physiological change in my mouth to make my mind salivate. Now, that's a small snippet of the metaphor, but how far can we extrapolate that and say, how far does that spread? The more I'm working with people, as a physio, and the more I'm working with people in chronic pain, and the more I'm understanding it myself, and the more I'm able to narrow it down, the more obvious it's becoming, and it really is. Even in my own life, I know with my own relationships, with my family and partners and all these kind of things, the more I'm kind of, experiencing either good or bad things. So I think it works both ways, whether it's good experience or bad experience. Wayne Dyer has this saying, it's like, if you squeeze an orange, you don't get apple juice, you get orange juice. You always get out of what you squeeze from what is within it. And and the idea, and the documentary talks about it again with the organic chemistry and all of this. It talks about how we all came from this one atom, and the idea of entanglement, of how once something is connected, that even if it's miles and miles and miles and miles apart, the energy never disconnects. So if you make an input on one end of the scale, it happens on the other end. Now, really interesting about that is quite often the signal actually completes its action on the opposite end of where the input was put in the first place, which is just a bit mind-blowing. But yeah, so again, I love where it started, and it started, the documentary, it starts really well at explaining what is understanding about where your health comes from and where all that stems from. Then it kind of gets into comparing and saying where a lot of our conventional medicine is, with, as you mentioned, it wasn't trying to downplay, it wasn't trying to say they're a bunch of evil assholes or nothing like that, because if you have a car crash and you break 3 vertebrae, you're not going to want to go in and get a massage, or you're not going to want to go in and get somebody to be going around with sage and saying prayers. You're going to want a surgeon. And that's where we need to be valuing technology and valuing all of these practitioners and the likes. But it's on the other end of that, where it is a chronic problem. If something, as you said, in Ayurveda, if it accumulates over time, if it takes a long time to develop, you're not going to fix it quickly. And I think that's a beautiful thing. When the problem happens slowly, the solution must happen slowly. When the problem happens quickly, the solution can be quick. And again, we're faced with, and I'm faced with it every day, with people coming into the clinic, and they could have back pain for a year. They're finally doing something about it, maybe because of money or fear or whatever else, and they're finally getting up and doing something, and they want you to fix them straight away. And it's kind of sad to see them even put that pressure on themselves. I'm used to that pressure, I can handle that pressure, and I'm able to downplay it. But for themselves to kind of have that level of expectation, have that level of despair, because if you're really looking for a way that easy, then you must have such little hope, such little sense of adaptability, such little sense of self-efficacy. And I think really the healthier we become, the more powerful manifestors we become. That will always coincide with being in control from the inside out, being creators, being, and go back to the Bible. I am that I am, and there's no ifs or buts about that. If, and I often say it, like, there's no way to look like a marathon runner unless you're a marathon runner. There's no way to look like a bodybuilder unless you're a bodybuilder. You have to be it, Yeah. And we're stuck with an industry, not obviously all of the industry, but a lot of the industry that is selling the opposite message. And it's selling a lot of fear. It's not giving people a lot of hope, and people are going down blind alleyways. And something needs to change. Something is changing. I can feel it. I know you can feel it. That's pretty sure why you done the documentary in the first place, and have noticed the feedback since. And that's what I kind of like to caveat into here. So it's been 3 years. In the 3 years since, and I guess I went earlier on about, have you any CIA agents and the likes following you, but also has there been, on the flip side of that, beautiful stories of people, have people gotten onto you saying that they had some realization, epiphany, slap in the face moment, heart attack in the couch moment, whatever it is after it, and their life has changed? Any transcendent stories from it?
Oh, so many. And that's what just continues to light up just makes it all not all worth it. It was worth it just because it was such a calling in my heart that I had to do it. There was just no question. I didn't really have a choice. And so I was finally like, okay, I surrender, I'll do it. And it was a really beautiful process. But 3 years later, to still get messages every single day of how, just so much gratitude. Thank you so much for doing this film. It's changed my life. We've had messages from younger people who were saying basically, like, I was at the end of my life, I didn't find any hope, and your film gave me hope. And my parents are crying, saying that they have their daughter back. Like, just beautiful. I mean, lots of diagnoses that we gave them the hope to take it into their own hands and not listen to the doctor, and just almost give them affirmation of what their intuition was already telling them, but they weren't, the fear was overriding their intuition. And so the film gave them that courage to follow their intuition, and it led them on a healing path, which that's all I could ever ask for. So, yeah, so it's been really beautiful and humbling, and I wish I could do more, for people. And
beautiful. And you mentioned there this idea of surrendering, and I've had this feeling too. It's when, and I think a lot of people do, we know that there's a voice inside us, and we can call it again source, God, Yahweh, whatever, it's telling us to do something, and we're coming up with all these externalized reasons of why not to do it. We set up so many blockages, whether it's self-created or our parents or those around us dampening our power. What kind of made you finally go, do you know what, fuck it, I'm doing it? Did you have any kind of epiphany moment where you were just like, all right, I'm on to the bank, getting the loan, I'm doing whatever it takes, it's getting done? And effectively, and I like this idea of getting out of your own way. It's like you could always do it. You could have probably made the documentary 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it took until now. Did it take any hard moment for you, or anything in particular to go for it?
I think it was, I've been thinking about it for many years. So it was about 8 years when I first had the idea, where I was like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to know this. And I want to put all my teachers in a film, just so I can, because all these people have changed my life, and I want to help others kind of wake up to what I know. And, 6 years went along, and I just kept thinking about it. I kept doing the work. But I wasn't ready to do it. And then finally I read, Dying to Be Me by Anita Morgani, which talks about her journey with stage 4 cancer. She had lost her best friend to cancer. Then she was just fearing every day that she would get cancer. And of course, our worst fears fulfill. And she got diagnosed with cancer. She tried everything. And then, she did all the holistic stuff. She went to India. She did Western medicine. And then finally, her body just shut down. She went into a coma. She was like skin and bone, lemon-sized tumors from her neck to her abdomen sticking out of her skin. I mean, there's no doctor on the planet that would think that she could come back from this physically. And she went into a coma, had a near-death experience, so went to the other realm, which some people call heaven. And she basically wasn't a body anymore. She was just her essence in this field of love that is beyond describing. Like, human words could not describe this magnitude of love that she felt, which I think is our source. That's where we come from. That's God. And her essence connected with the essence of her father, who had passed over years prior, and they had this very tumultuous relationship in life. He was a strict Hindu man, wanted her to have an arranged marriage. She was raised in Hong Kong, so was westernized and said no, so she shamed the family. So there was a lot of tension in life with her father. But when their essences met in that other realm, there was no judgment, no negativity, no animosity, resentment, anything from earthly life. And it was just pure love and understanding. And she was like, wow. And so they had this telepathic conversation of just a knowing, basically. And he essentially said, she realized in that moment that the reason she had cancer was because every moment she had made in her life was out of fear, which is out of alignment with our source, which is this magnitude of love. And he said, yes, now that you know that, you have to go back to life. And she's like, I don't want to go back to that. This feels amazing up here. I'm in pure love. I'm with my dad. And that body down there is riddled with cancer. I don't want to go back. And he said, no, your purpose is not complete yet. You need to go back. And she knew that if she went back into her body, she would heal. So She came back into her body. She recounted to doctors things that she recounted a conversation they had, the doctor and her husband had 40 feet down the hall, that she would never have been able to hear in a coma or not. She recounted details from that conversation. She knew the name of the doctor that had only started treating her once she was unconscious in a coma. She could recount things that they were doing to her while she was in a coma. So all of that to say, because some people would be like, oh no, she was just hallucinating in her coma. But essentially she came back into her body, and within 3 weeks, her physical body had healed. No more cancer in her body. Okay. So that to me shows with just that's how powerful the mind is. And just with a shift in your belief system and a shift in consciousness, miracles happen. Anything can happen. And that she is the poster child of possibility for me. And once I read that story, I was like, okay, game on, let's do this.
All right.
But I said the surrender came where, like, look, I've never directed a film. I've always wanted to direct. I've been on sets my whole life. I know I have the mind to direct, but I don't know technically what I'm doing. I've had zero education in technical directing. Mm-hmm. And I said, so God, look, you have this calling that's very powerful, like, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to say yes. And you're going to do the work, show me how it's done. And everything there was definitely an energy behind it that guided me the whole time.
It's incredible. Yeah. And I felt the same too. I think finally, whether it's this project or any other project I've done, when you truly just let go and get out of your own way and you just allow it to do its own thing, people and opportunities and stuff, they just start presenting themselves. The help brings itself to you. You don't actually have to do much. I had a similar, I ran a bit of an experiment, a couple of different laws of giving and receiving experiments, and where I would say that I at the time I turned vegan, as another experiment. So I was running 2 simultaneous experiments, and I said, John, I'm going to be totally open to receiving things, even if I don't like them. So if somebody tries to give me something, even if I don't necessarily like it, like a shitty pair of shoes, or even something with cheese in it or whatever, I would accept it, but not maybe use it, but accept it nonetheless. And what started happening was, and I wasn't telling people I was vegan, people started figuring it out. People started bringing me food. And because I'd aligned the 2 experiments in one, like literally I was being fed everywhere I went. I couldn't explain it. I go into somewhere and, somebody, I went to the shop and got you these cakes. And it's like, all right, I have a client come in with, these homemade, beautiful, like protein balls or whatever it would be. And I was like, really kind of just a bit of another mind-blowing moment. I ran similar ones with money. I had a big blockage in my mind that, I needed money and I wanted money because, of all the things money could allow me to do. But I'd only seen that money was only coming through clients. And I'd done a bit of meditation and I worked on, I was like, well, do I want the money? Or do I want, the clients coming through? And I said, well, for now, I want the money. So I said, okay, let's just feel money in abundance. And the next day I had 2 job offers that I hadn't applied for, didn't reach out to nobody. They were really well paid. And I was like, no, they were still related to, they weren't anything to do with clients, but they were related to same qualifications I have and all of that. I was like, fuck, this is really, really powerful. So I've tried to get better and better and better. And of course, bad shit has happened that has made me worse too over time. And then I get better again. And I think that's important to be okay with too, because life will sometimes throw something at you and it's harder to tune in. Today it might take 5 minutes to get to that nice meditative state. Tomorrow it could take an hour, depending on what's going on around us. And forgiveness, I think, is a big part of that to allow that. And there was a beautiful moment in the documentary where Eva was going through that whole forgiveness about her mother and all of that. And it was so powerful. So it's a really big part of it. So getting towards the end of the show now, there is a new segment I'm doing. You're the first guest I actually didn't warn because I said you're going to nail this because there's no bother to you. You love the camera. So I have 2 questions for you. Okay. One is, and I'll ask the other one after you answer this one, is if you were on your deathbed, in about 400 years' time, I would imagine.
Thank you.
If you're on your deathbed and you have one last breath left in your body, what would you say to either your younger self or anybody else for that matter? What would you say to them and why?
Oh my gosh. This is tough. One last.
Got this. It can be a really deep breath.
Okay, good. I mean, what's coming forward and what I always say and what I'm doing work around now is just don't limit yourself. Anything is possible. We truly live in a world of infinite possibility. So believe that your biggest dreams and desires are possible.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that. And again, you're a great example of it because you've done something in your life that the vast majority of other people wouldn't have had the proverbial balls to do, or the courage to do. And you did it, and you made it. So yeah, no better woman to send that message. Now the other question, the reason I wanted to do this is I wanted to spread gratitude. I wanted to spread love. And I knew that I thought that if I was there sitting at my desk working and I got an email notification or some notification to say, 2 guys on a podcast or, whatever, mention me as just a thank you. I was like, that'd be a really nice boost. So the idea of this is, and I'm trying to develop a hashtag. So the hashtag praise it forward. If there's one person out there, rich, famous, or otherwise, they could be absolutely anyone, maybe a plumber or a baker or whatever it is, that you would like to take the opportunity now to share your gratitude towards them, who would that be and why?
Oh boy.
You have thousands of people going through your mind now.
I know. I literally have so many people. I like
say as many as you want, but yeah.
I'm a big gratitude person. I think to first start out by saying, I mean, just along the lines of heal, yes, it was my idea. Yes, I was the director. Yes, it was my vision. But like I said, there was a energy behind it that wasn't mine. I was just kind of the vessel through which it expressed. So for sure, be grateful for God. And I don't usually speak in religious terms like God. He's definitely not a man in the sky with a white beard and a cape for me, or like a toga or whatever. But just the spirit, I guess I would just like to thank spirit, thank life, thank divinity, like, whether it's music that you're creating or documentary or your gifts, whatever those gifts are, that comes from spirit. And so I'm thankful that came through, and I surrendered so that it could come through in the way that it wanted to express, because I couldn't do it as well as spirit could. And then thank, Eva and Elizabeth were the 2 people in the film who were on healing journeys, which healing, just life journey in general, it's full of vulnerability and challenge. And for them to open up, especially Eva, who, like you said, wasn't, she was still new to this whole holistic approach, and she had a very vulnerable, open wounds and sores on her body that weren't attractive. For her to come to agree to be filmed and open up and let us film these really emotional therapy sessions, that is like the highest courage. So, and I wish we had found more answers on film to share with people, but it was a beautiful, her journey, the fact that it's still continuing today, even 3 years later, shows that, healing is not always cookie cutter and easy. It's complicated. It's sometimes a lifetime journey. And so for her to have the courage to be that example so that others can relate. And I think that we all had a cathartic experience watching her, kind of relive and try to work through her childhood trauma. That's, I will forever be grateful for that, because the film wouldn't be the same without those 2 human stories and vulnerability.
That is, and I love that, because vulnerability, and we talked about Marianne Williamson earlier and the poem Return to Love, and it's, who do we serve by dimming our light, and it's that idea. It's like when we shine our light and we open up, we might allow one other person to do the same, and that's our job done. No, hopefully we might maybe allow many more to do the same, but even one is enough. And again, fair play to, and maybe fair play is an over Irish term, but yeah, really thank you from me, and I'm sure the audience and everyone who's watched the show, to Eva and to Elizabeth. Really wishing you well. You deserve all the health and happiness that are coming your way, because the world is sending you all of the love.
Yes.
Before we finish up, have you any news for us about any upcoming work? Where can people find you, hear out more about you, more about the book, more about the DVD, or maybe Netflix, or wherever the modern versions of the documentary are available? Maybe a VCR if you still have it going. Yeah, so any plugs or anything where people reach out?
Sure. Most of us can be found healdocumentary.com. So that's on the World Wide Web. And then we're pretty active on Instagram and Facebook at Heal Documentary. I personally am more on Instagram at Kelly Gores. So the book came out a year ago, and it's just, I think it's a good follow-up resource. It's basically the documentary in book form, but then there's twice as much content, because you can put a lot more on the page than you can on a film. So there's good info in there for a good gift for anyone on the healing journey, if you're looking for a Christmas gift. And then we had worked with Hay House, which is a big publisher here in the United States, and they do a lot of the experts in the film are actually Hay House authors. And so we've released 2 summits with them, with interviews, the full-length interviews from the Heal documentary, that there's so much content that wasn't able to be in the film. So we released that summit with Hay House, and then a subsequent summit. And we're taking the best interviews from those 2 summits, including 4 more new ones that we're filming this week, and releasing them in the spring, probably in March or February. I think in February, actually, as an online summit with Hay House. And then that will be available. Those interviews will be available evergreen on our site, because I just feel that the information that these experts has shared with us, they're an hour to an hour and a half long interviews, and they're just so valuable for anyone starting a healing journey. So that'll be available in like March, and just at any time you need extra dive. It's basically, if the documentary is 101 version, then you can dive deeper with all of these experts, which is really cool.
Beautiful. And you're the gift that keeps on giving. That's such a gift. I mean, all of that information, all of that wisdom from all of the various corners of the world brought in under one roof and just given the way you give it. Thank you so much, not only for your time today, but for all of the work, all of the contribution, and just thank you for being yourself, for being vulnerable enough to do what is and has been your mission. And the world is a better place for it. So
thank you for having me, Jack. And thank you for all of your light and good work that you're doing as well.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks, Kelly. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
So that's all for today, folks. I hope, like me, you enjoyed your time with Kelly. And remember, if you'd like to check her work out, head over to Instagram at Kelly Gores and Heal Documentary, or head to healdocumentary.com, and be sure to check out the show over on Netflix too. If you'd like to support us, remember Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at LifeFit Studios, my personal page at JackO'Halloran_IE, and we are also on Patreon, where every donation you make can go an awful long way to helping us keep this show alive. Also, don't forget, we're giving away a signed copy of the Heal book. All you have to do, tag a friend in the comments below, share the post to your story, share the post in your social, or send us a DM and we'll enter you into the draw for that. So, I wish you now to stay safe, be kind to your fellow human, and go with love. Yours in health, Jack.